there was some good news as the government released the latest GDP figures. India has recorded a growth of 8.7% in 2021-22, the highest since 2000, though this is on the back of a very low base. The economy had contracted at 6.6% the previous year because of the pandemic. It's also lower than the RBI's estimate of 9.5%, but the value of the GDP is slightly above pre-pandemic levels, which the government says shows that things are finally looking up, that India has bounced back. Certainly, if you look at the world's major economies, India is doing better. But the bad news is that the GDP grew by only 4.1% in the March quarter, the lowest quarterly growth in the entire year. It is down from 5.4% in the quarter before that.
So the GDP growth year on year in fiscal Q4 21-22 at 4.1% was better than what many had anticipated in the private sector because of concerns about the impact caused by the Omicron wave in January, which lingered partially into February as well. And about 2% of the 7% inflation rate that we are looking at is coming from imported price pressures. And these inflation pressures will remain elevated because as we speak, the global crude oil price is heading back towards $120.
The other big story, a huge crowd gathering for the last rites of Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala in his native village in the state. The popular singer, just 28 years old, was dressed like a groom and placed on his favourite tractor for his final journey. His parents inconsolable. After the cremation, his father removed his turban and held it out in his hands towards the sea of people who had come to pay their last respects. However, the first arrest in the Moosewala murder case has also happened. The court has also asked the state to explain the reasons behind withdrawal of security.
A final goodbye from parents and thousands of fans.
Funeral pyre here which has not yet cooled down, and what we got to know from people here, they say that Sidhu Moosewala also sang songs to glorify mother, to glorify relationships. He has also sung song over religious issues. He has also sung song over other issues other than gun and violence, as his critics claim.
A large crowd outside singer-politician Sidhu Moosewala's house in Punjab's Mansa district. His parents inconsolable. His family decorated Sidhu Moosewala's famous tractor 5911 with his photograph, and his body was transported on it to his ancestral field for cremation, where his last rites were performed by his father who witnessed his murder. His fans spoke about him.
उनके गानों को लेके काफ़ी क्रिटिसिज्म बोला गया, गन कल्चर को प्रमोट करते हैं, बट ऐसा नहीं है. मेरा एक यार दोस्त था, ऑल इंडिया रैंक 100, सिलेक्शन नहीं हुआ था उस साल उसका, आगे रोने लग गया IAS एग्ज़ाम में, आगे रोने लग गया, गाड़ी में बैठा, कहता चश्मे लगाए उसने, कहता मूसेवाला लगा दे, अगले साल फिर तैयारी करेंगे. He got selected next year, rank 23.
बहुत ਵਧੀਆ ਵੱਡੇ ਰੂਪ, ਬੜਾ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਭਰਾ ਸੀ, ਸਾਰੇ ਚੱਲ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਆ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ.
2 days after his killing, the culprits are still at large. Gangster Lawrence Bishnoi, who along with Goldie Brar has taken responsibility for the murder, was questioned by the Delhi police today in Tihar jail. Lawrence Bishnoi has moved court asking that he not be handed over to the Punjab police, as he fears he might be killed in a fake encounter.
आके पुलिस प्रेशर में, आके पॉलिटिकल प्रेशर में मेरे क्लाइंट के साथ कोई मिसहैपनिंग कर दे. हम फेयर ट्रायल के लिए तैयार हैं, फिर इन्वेस्टिगेशन के लिए तैयार हैं, हर तरीके से इन्वेस्टिगेशन में कोऑपरेट करने को तैयार हैं, लेकिन मेरी सुरक्षा मेरा राइट है, तो इसी सुरक्षा को मांगने के लिए मैंने हाई कोर्ट में रिट पिटीशन फाइल की है.
As they say, singer Sidhu Moosewala embarks on his final journey, but his death also reminds each one of us that how mindless violence can cut down a young promising life like Sidhu Moosewala. And the government, society and each one of us will have to contribute to ensure that such incidents don't happen in future in Punjab. In Mansa with camera person Ashwini Mehra, Mohammad Ghazali for NDTV.
Meanwhile, other singers in Punjab are now also saying we're dealing with hate threats as well and death threats just to do what we do for a living. And Sidhu Moosewala made it look easy. He stayed true to his principles. Singer Mankirat Aulak also saying, I've got threats as well. I want more security. So clearly that murder that has shocked Punjab, indeed shocked the country, also giving rise to fear and insecurity among other artists in the state. In other news, ace strategist Prashant Kishor, after nearly joining the Congress weeks ago, declared today that he would never go with the party, folding his hands for emphasis. He made that pronouncement on his tour of Bihar villages to gather public views on an alternative government in his home state. The Congress, he said, would go down and take everyone down with it.
17 में एक चुनाव यूपी हार गए, कांग्रेस के साथ कर रहे थे, इसीलिए तय कर लिया कि कांग्रेस के साथ काम नहीं करेंगे। इसलिए ऐसी पार्टी है कि तो सुधरती नहीं है, तो हमारा बड़ा सम्मान है कांग्रेस के लिए, लेकिन अभी की जो कांग्रेस की व्यवस्था है वो ऐसी है कि अपने तो सुधरेगा नहीं, हम अपने तो डूब रहा है, हमको भी डुबा देगा।
News from Uttar Pradesh, referring to Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav recounting an anecdote of a student mistaking him for Rahul Gandhi, UP Chief Minister Adityanath has said there's not much difference between the two leaders. One criticizes the country abroad, the other speaks ill about UP outside the state.
आज बहुत स्पष्ट तस्वीर दिखाई दे रही है, अगले 5 वर्ष के अंदर उत्तर प्रदेश कहां होगा। मैं देखता था माननीय नेता प्रतिपक्ष को, एक तरफ किसान की बात कर रहे थे, दूसरी तरफ उन्हें गोबर में बदबू नजर आ रही थी। कैसी विडंबना है। गोबर तो हमारे यहां गाय का गोबर तो बड़ा पवित्र माना गया है, और मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा भी नेता प्रतिपक्ष हम लोगों से नहीं मानते, हो सकता है वे पूजा न करते हो।
प्राइमरी स्कूल में मैं हमेशा जाता हूं, और मैं एक बार नहीं गया, जब मैं मुख्यमंत्री था तब भी मैं गया, और मैं अपनी भी कमी जानता हूं। जब मैं एक स्कूल में गया, मैं जाकर के बच्चे से पूछा कि पहचाना आपने मुझे, तो वो छोटा सा बच्चा बोला कि हाँ मैंने पहचान लिया। मैंने पूछा कौन हूं मैं, तो बोले आप राहुल गांधी हैं। तो नेता सदन ने कहा कि कन्नौज को भी हमने कुछ दिया है। मैं नेता सदन से कहूंगा कन्नौज की पहचान इत्र से है, गोबर से नहीं है।
In yet another incident of a targeted attack, a school teacher was fired at and killed by terrorists in the Kulgam district of Kashmir. 36-year-old Rajni Bala was shot dead near the school where she taught. Women, children have become the latest casualties of terror, even as Kashmiri pundits are pleading to leave the valley once again.
Minutes before she could enter this school to start teaching, Rajni Bala was shot by terrorists. There is a sense of shock and disbelief among her colleagues, with whom she had worked with for the last 7 years. The teachers at the government high school at Gopalpura say the morning assembly was on when they heard gunshots and eventually found Rajni shot less than 50 meters from the school.
अभी स्कूल पहुंची नहीं थी तो उसकी हत्या हो गई।
तो आपने कब देखा?
साथ मेरी 7 साल से हमारे साथ।
7 साल से आपके कभी कुछ नहीं, उसके बच्चे भी
नहीं हुआ, एक बच्ची है उसकी, बस 8 दिन पहले वो हमारे साथ एक्सकर्शन पर थी।
जी जी,
एक साथ थी, एक साथ खाया, एक साथ खेला, एक साथ घूमे, क्या पता था।
Rajni Bala, who was teaching in this school for last 7 years, was killed right outside this school, in the middle of orchards in Kulgam district. It has shocked everybody. Kashmiri Pandits are protesting. They have given ultimatum to government that they should be relocated within 24 hours. Otherwise, they will migrate to Jammu.
Saima, Rajni's colleague and friend who is inconsolable, is asking the government to save Hindu employees from targeted killings.
हमारी तरफ से हमें ज़्यादा मीडिया फेस नहीं करते, जो बाकी है ना आप इनके लिए प्लीज़ कोई सेफ्टी का वो कराइए, बेचारों को वहाँ जम्मू ट्रांसफ़र कराइए, वो भी इतने दहशत में थे, मतलब उनको सेव करके बस ये आप वो बेचारी गई अब इंशाल्लाह वो शहीद की हो गई, वो फरिश्ता लेडी थी, बाकी जो है उनको सेव रखिए, बस ये आप मैसेज दे दीजिए.
In Srinagar and several other parts of Kashmir, around 4,000 Kashmiri Pandit employees intensified protests demanding their immediate relocation. These employees have refused to attend their duties after the killing of Kashmiri Pandit government employee Rahul Bhatt inside a magistrate's office early this month.
हमने एक डिसीजन लिया है कि अगर 24 घंटे के अंदर सरकार ने कोई भी ठोस फैसला हमारे लिए नहीं लिया तो हम लोग 24 घंटे के अंदर वैली से पलायन करेंगे और मास माइग्रेशन दोबारा होगी.
The police say they will go after the attackers and neutralize them soon, but that's little comfort for migrant employees who stay in the valley. With Nazir Masoodi in Kulgam, Bureau Report, NDTV.
Let's get you all the latest in the race for the Rajya Sabha. Two media barons have now made a lateral entry into the fray and given Congress candidates a bit of a jolt. In Rajasthan, the Z Network's Subhash Chandra has set up a contest with Priyanka Gandhi Vadra's pick Pramod Tiwari. In Haryana, NewsX owner Kartikeya Sharma is contesting as an independent, also backed by the BJP, making it a tough fight for the Congress's Ajay Maken. The Chanchotala has also announced support for Kartikeya, and Congress's Kuldeep Bishnoi, it seems, is also sulking, and cross-voting could also be possible. In Maharashtra, the BJP upping the ante, aiming for a third seat, which makes it seem as though cross-voting could be likely again.
The Rajya Sabha elections and two wildcard entries. Media baron Subhash Chandra and businessman Kartikeya Sharma as independents in Rajasthan and Haryana is giving the Congress a run for its money. In Rajasthan, the Congress was sitting pretty in the 4 seats. They had put up 3 candidates, Mukul Wasnik, Randeep Singh Surjewala and Pramod Tiwari. And the BJP won. But Chandra is the 5th entry and he will now create a contest in the 4th seat, facing off with Pramod Tiwari. It will need some deft political management by Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot.
तो जब इनको पता है कि हम नहीं जीत सकते तो फिर हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग का सपना देख करके योजना बना करके आप खड़े कर रहे उम्मीदवार को, ये परंपरा आतंक को डालेगा आप.
The BJP's official candidate in Rajasthan is Ghanshyam Tiwari, but Chandra as an independent has the BJP batting for him.
अब इस समय में अपने पैतृक और अपनी जन्मभूमि राजस्थान में से चुनाव में भेजें, राज्यसभा का सदस्य बनाएं. तो फतेहपुर शेखावाटी में मेरा अभी भी घर है, परिवार है, मंदिर है जिसमें हम लोग साल में 6 बार जाते आते हैं. तो एक तो पहली बात ये कि राजस्थान से मैं नया नहीं हूँ.
Similarly, in Haryana, where the BJP is hoping to dent the Congress's flop, Kuldeep Bishnoi is reportedly unhappy with the party, and Kumari Shelja, who has been denied a ticket which has gone to Ajay Maken, makes the party's situation slippery. Kartikeya Sharma's entry as an independent backed by the BJP, who will give him their 9 surplus votes, could create a contest for Ajay Maken. The Congress has 31 votes in Haryana, but it's too close for comfort. In Maharashtra, there are 6 seats going to the polls, which could test the Shiv Sena MVA alliance. The BJP can win 2 on its own. The NCP, Congress and Shiv Sena 1 each. The contest is now on for the 6th seat between BJP's Dhananjay Mahadik and Shiv Sena's Sanjay Pawar. Each candidate needs 42 votes to win. The BJP will have 24 surplus votes and will be eyeing defections in MVA and support of smaller parties and independents, while the Shiv Sena is banking on support from the MVA. The BJP will also this time not give a single ticket to a Muslim candidate. The terms of MJ Akbar, Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi and Syed Zafar Islam get over, but the BJP has decided against repeating a Muslim face. In Uttar Pradesh, 8 BJP candidates have filed their Rajya Sabha nominations. Of the 11 seats in UP, the BJP are in a position to win 8. The SP is likely to win 3. The BJP's candidates also include the ex-Gorakhpur MLA who vacated his seat for CM Adityanath. With Akhilesh Sharma, Harsha Kumari Singh, NDTV.
A court has now sent Delhi Minister Satyendra Jain to the Enforcement Directorate's custody until the 9th of June. The Delhi Chief Minister backing his Health Minister, who's currently in jail. He even had a personal message for Jain's family.
मैंने सत्येंद्र जैन के सारे कागज खुद देखे हैं। पढ़ा लिखा आदमी हूं, कानून की भी बहुत समझ है। इनके ऊपर लगाए गए सारे आरोप फर्जी हैं। पूरा का पूरा मामला फर्जी है। केवल राजनीति की वजह से उन्हें गिरफ्तार किया गया है। मैं समझ सकता हूं उनकी पत्नी और उनके बच्चों पे इस वक्त क्या गुजर रही होगी। मैं उन्हें कहना चाहता हूं, भाभी जी, आपके पति बेहद साहसी हैं। बच्चों, आपके पिता बेहद साहसी हैं।
After 2 long months, Shanghai's massive lockdown will finally end on Wednesday. Shanghai starts to reopen as COVID cases have dropped. 20 million people will finally be free to leave their homes. Now, Shanghai's importance, of course, can't be underscored enough. It is the major goods supplier to the world.
Shanghai has begun to emerge from a lockdown that has constrained the global economy and created even more turmoil for supply chains. The tough restrictions hit businesses in the manufacturing and commercial hub as factories were shut and truckers struggled to move goods in and out of Shanghai due to restrictions on movement. Those in Shanghai will now be allowed to move around freely in areas deemed low risk for COVID-19. There is a strict caveat for residents who are planning to take public transport and enter public venues, as they will have to get COVID tests every 72 hours to gain entry. China is alone among major countries enforcing an uncompromising zero COVID policy. The bad news remains China's jobless rate. It rose to 6.1% in April, the highest level since the 6.2% peak seen in the early part of the COVID-19 pandemic in February 2020. The prolonged isolation has fueled public anger and rare protests inside Shanghai and battered the city's manufacturing and export-heavy economy, disrupting supply chains in China and around the world and slowing international trade. Even if the lockdown ends on schedule, its effects on the economy, public health and trust in government could last much longer. Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.